Viewers, this is part 2 in a series on this person, Malign. She was in an interview with a journalist called David Spears, and she's on about Palestine and everything, and she was repeatedly refusing to answer questions whether she believed Hamas should be dismantled. Okay, she dodged and weaved and she wouldn't give an answer. Now, 3 or 4 times she was speaking about Israel and Palestine conflict. At first, Senator Farquhar said the presence of Hamas had nothing to do with recognising Palestine statehood, but it has. Because Hamas are running Palestine, they're wrecking it, they're killing their own people, they're killing the Palestinian people. Israel, we know, is killing Palestinian people trying to get to Hamas, because Hamas use them as human shields, which is a very complicated issue. But the problem here is Hamas. Now, this woman doesn't fully agree that Hamas should be dismantled, which indirectly associates her as giving Hamas the thumbs up, which is the whole problem. So she is not willing to shut down the problem. Okay? Penny Wong has done everything she can to try and help this woman to see from an Australian point of view what we're trying to deal with here. And I'm going to go through this again with Miss Wong, but we'll cut out the interjections by Malign
language you've just used. And I want to place on record my deep concern at the way in which some in this debate, I include some members of the Coalition and some members of the Greens, are seeking to engage in what is a very difficult discussion in ways which are inflammatory, relying on often untruths.
Is it untrue that almost 30,000 Palestinians have been killed?
Excuse me, I listen to you politely.
We know the rules.
I listen to you with courtesy.
Please let the Minister finish.
I listen to you with courtesy. I'd ask you that you extend the same to me. The fact is that there is a humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza. I have said that. And I've also said, as the Prime Minister, we mourn every innocent life, Palestinian and Israeli, that has been lost. I think we all know that this is a conflict which is weighing heavily on people in Australia, people who take different views. One of the things that really struck me when I went to the Middle East is how important it is to maintain that we remember our common humanity in the midst of disagreement and conflict.
And that's a very important part of this message, common humanity. And the people that are saying that the Palestinians aren't being supported and that not enough's being done, and the part where the common humanity has broken down is through the terrorist organisations. They have no common humanity. They have their agenda. That's all there is to it. If you're in the way of it, you're going to get hurt, maimed, killed, whatever. And now these people, these ones here that won't answer whether they support Hamas or not, this is Greens MP, Malign, and I apologise if I haven't pronounced your name correctly. This is actually on her YouTube channel, so she's put it there for us to have. Over and over, asked over and over again. She just will not say that she wants Hamas shut down. Now, Penny Wong is doing a fantastic job with this.
And that we maintain respect for one another, because people come to this country because they want to live in a country that is peaceful, tolerant and respectful.
And she's just nailed it. People come to this country because it is peaceful, honourable and respectful, right? And they forget it. They get here and they get comfortable and they get complacent, and all of a sudden, guess what? They start this, what Penny Wong's up against now.
And I would say that all of us who have the privilege of elected office have an obligation to ensure that the distress in our community does not turn to hatred. Now, Senator, the concern I have is that some of your and your colleagues' language appears to be designed, as is Peter Dutton's at times, to whip up
Minister,
anger
as you know, I have
votes.
limited
Excuse
time.
me.
I have asked you a question. Could you respond to my
Senator.
question?
See, this is the standover, stubborn, irate, look at the face, attitudes of these people.
Please.
Senators, please.
I'm
We
allowed
know.
Chair, I have asked a question. I'll be
Senator
grateful
Faruqi.
if the Minister answers that question.
I won't be cutting you short, but just allow the
Okay, so they disrespect each other. She's got no respect for Penny Wong. None whatsoever.
Minister to finish, and we'll get through what we need to get through.
I think it is of deep regret that whilst the government is seeking to ensure that distress in our community does not turn to hatred, we see particular members of parliament who are looking to use this crisis to whip up anger, presumably for votes.
Minister, don't you dare accuse me
And-
of whipping
Order,
up anger
order,
and
order,
compare me to the
senators.
people who
Order.
actually
Can I
Okay.
just...
whip up anger
Senators,
and are
please.
divisive.
She does not like to be confronted. This woman does not like to be associated with the psychological violence and vandalism that's going on around this Palestine issue. And let me remind you again, it's not directly an Australian issue.
Please,
Senator,
let's just- Sorry, Minister.
Sorry.
Can we just please all cool the temperature a little
Sure.
bit, please?
I'm happy to.
Now, Senator, please allow the Minister just to conclude, and we'll quickly come back to your questions.
I would say, Senator Faruqi, even in that question and in many questions you have asked, you persist in making
Telling the truth.
inflammatory assertions which are not true.
Minister,
and I
did
would
you speak
remind
to Mr.
I would
Lazzarini
remind you-
before you made an announcement to
Okay.
suspend funding? I'm sorry, that's my question. Could you please answer that
All right,
question?
well, you just have to wait for that question until the Minister just concludes her answer
Thank
to
you,
your
Chair.
first question.
Thank you.
That is my first
abstinent.
question.
Well,
Okay,
there was
and
a
we'll
lot.
come to it.
Senator Faruqi, you made a lot of loaded assertions, and I'm entitled to respond to them, actually. And I would remind you that we have seen incidents in our community, which included laying false corpses outside of MPs' offices, threatening emails and phone calls to staff in electorate offices, weaponising the imagery of deceased children, spraying fake blood on shop fronts of electorate offices. We have staff who are intimidated and threatened. And what I would say to you is your party has a responsibility, as all of us do, to not legitimise that by using inflammatory language and perpetuating untruths. Because that is what
Telling
you are
the truth
doing.
is not
No,
inflammatory
you are
language.
perpetuating an
Okay?
untruth.
No one is perpetuating
You are.
untruths. Which
because
untruths?
you are asserting that we have cut funding to UNRWA. It
You
is
have
not true.
suspended funding to UNRWA.
May I
That is what
finish?
I have
May I
asserted.
finish?
And you know what? It's not really an Australian issue. This is taxpayers' money. You can see this woman here, this Australian woman here, she's having trouble with it all. You can see the agenda of this woman that Penny Wong's trying to deal with. It's not an Australian issue, and she's demanding.
No.
I have doubled funding to UNRWA. We have suspended, along with many other partners, in the face of serious allegations which UNRWA itself described as serious. Now, there are two truths in relation to UNRWA. The first is it is critical. It's a critical organisation
I'm
which
sorry, Minister. Please answer the question. It's like you've been
Senator
talking about
Faruqi.
without answering the question for the last
I
10
agree.
minutes.
She doesn't want to hear, and she doesn't want exposed the reality of what is happening with the United Nations support to Palestine, which is being ransacked. There are Hamas workers in the organisation. Australia and several other organisations have pulled the pin on it till these investigations are clear. The United Nations have admitted it themselves that there may be Hamas infiltrators working in the organisation that this woman's talking about, and she doesn't like it.
Minister, have you concluded your answer?
I'm trying to conclude my
No,
answer.
did you speak to Mr. Lazzarini?
So let's find out who Mr. Lazzarini is. Well, I've found him here, statement by UNRWA Commissioner General, Mr. Philippi Lazzarini, to the UN Assembly's Force Committee. Bear with me, viewers.
For more than 2 million Gazans, it is a living hell. a nightmare from which they cannot wake. Catastrophic levels of hunger across the Gaza Strip are the result of human action.
Of Hamas actions, right? Hamas actions.
Children are dying of malnutrition and dehydration, while food and clean water wait in trucks. UNRWA has been...
You know why the food and water is waiting in trucks? Because Hamas are ransacking the trucks. The Gazans are ransacking the trucks out of desperation for food and water, but Hamas are stealing the trucks.
A driver of human development for Palestinian refugees since its creation. It has upheld the rights to education and health while providing protection and assistance in the absence of a full-fledged state. By doing so, the agency has been a force for stability across the region and a beacon of hope for Palestinians. Today, however, UNRWA is staggering under the weight of relentless attacks. In 30 years of humanitarian work, I have never encountered such blatant disregard for the protected status of humanitarian workers, facilities and operations under international law.
So I'm not sure what exactly he was talking about, but whether it was Hamas or Israel or what was going on there. But the fact of the matter is, employees for UNRWA have been taking part in Hamas activities.
Is that your only question, or you've got...
I've got a few more.
Okay, all right.
We have doubled UNRWA funding. A fact that, Senator Faruqi, in your accusations using loaded language, you never acknowledge. We have doubled core funding. The only funding that has been suspended, and I was very transparent about that, was funding for the flash appeal, and Ms Delaney has gone to that point. We have also increased humanitarian funding through other means to the region. There are 2 points about UNRWA. One is it is critical. The second is that serious allegations were made. And I made the decision, and I have been upfront as Minister in relation to that component of the funding, which is a fraction, let us be clear, of the funding that we are providing to UNRWA and to the region, that I, along with other colleagues, would pause pending consideration of how UNRWA would deal with those allegations. UNRWA has appropriately put in place an internal investigation, which Senator Green has asked about. There is also...
And this internal investigation has to do with Hamas people infiltrating UNRWA as employees.
UN investigation or a review inquiry, I can't recall the term, which Catherine Colonna, the former French minister, is heading. And we look forward to international partners, including Australia, being able to have the confidence to enable further funding to flow to an organisation which I do regard as critical for the well-being and welfare of Palestinians.
So, Minister, you're refusing to answer my question. I take it that's a no. You're refusing to answer my question and trying to divert attention by making false accusations about the Greens and I.
Pretty fanatical statements when you think about it, what she's, the way she's pushing her weight around there. Penny Wong has been absolutely fantastic, really, when you think about it, hasn't she? She's been very diplomatic. This is what's going on inside the Parliament, and this is taxpayers' money.
Prior to the allegations becoming public when I was in Israel.
Before you suspended funding?
I suspended the funding after the allegations were raised with me, and I, at that point, knew what Mr Lazarini's public response was. We then had sought a call, and I have spoken to him since, as I have with others about this issue.
Minister Wong, it has now been widely reported that the so-called 6-page dossier supplied by the State of Israel, which alleges that UNRWA staff involvement, contains no evidence of the claim. Minister, do you have the dossier? Have you seen it?
No, I do not, and I have asked Israel through my officials for the information on which they were relying when that story appeared in the international media, and I would hope that the Israeli government would ensure that its friends and partners were provided with that information.
So has that information been provided to you?
Yet.
Not yet. So you've made a decision on suspending UNRWA's funding without a single piece of evidence of the claims that Israel has made.
What we've got to ask ourselves, viewers, is why is this woman so desperate? Why is she so desperate? What's this money? I mean, there's so many millions and billions of dollars being poured into Gaza to try and keep these people alive. We know that Hamas is stealing the water and food and storing the water and food that's being sent in there as humanitarian aid. What is this woman pushing for Australian money so heavily for to be sent overseas when Penny Wong's clearly explained that there's a integrity issue, a moral issue, a terrorist issue in UNRWA?
Just heard from Mr. Ennis Brown that there have been previous claims which have been exaggerated,
That's true.
or based on all, and some of them have been false, based on.
When you think about it, viewers, what they've said about Israel and all the rest of it is so far away from the truth. It's scandalous, unbelievable, and on borderline insane.
All of that, don't you think it is irresponsible for a government to suspend funding for a main UN agency? And you have yourself said that reports from the UN say that 400,000 Palestinians in Gaza are starving and 1 million are at a risk of starvation. Is it not irresponsible to just suspend funding without even talking to the chief of the agency, without having a shred of evidence? Is this how you make...
She does have a shred of evidence. She's got several other companies that have said, no, we're not supporting this. The integrity of UNRWA has been infiltrated. Hamas is directing the food to certain areas where they require it, and it's not going where it's supposed to. What's this? This woman's a fanatic, but she's not a fanatic for Australia, right? She's like an ambassador from Palestine, right? Sitting in the Australian Senate at the Australian taxpayers' expense, demanding, viciously demanding, psychologically, violently demanding that we send money to Palestine despite the egregiances within the UNRWA organisation as far as they've been infiltrated by Hamas.
Decisions without any evidence, without speaking to the people who are being impacted. That is highly irresponsible and reckless. And is this a pattern of how your decisions are made?
No, I don't agree with your multiple characterisations. I think two things.
You have just said you didn't speak to Mr. Lazzarini.
Okay.
You have said you have no evidence from Israel.
This woman, as you can see, Penny Wong herself, has no honour, getting no honour or respect from this person. She's actually speechless. I don't think Penny Wong's got time to deal with this. And again, this is at taxpayers' money.
Okay.
Can we speak with some courtesy?
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Can I have some courtesy? I extended you courtesy.
The minister has the right to reply.
I think you're the one who are discourteous.
Senator, come on.
Senator,
Can you see how stubborn, arrogant, defaming, standoverish, bullyish, they tirade their point. They are not of the same culture. They're not of the same mind as Australians. She is just bullying, and that's not the object to this.
I listened to a very long question with a lot of false accusations.
All right,
Or
now,
erroneous
Minister,
accusations.
you have the call.
I would make a few points. Mr. Lazzarini sacked a number of his staff. He put out a statement which my recollection said serious allegations to be investigated, to be considered by UNRWA. So I would say to you, UNRWA itself demonstrated concern about the actions. Secondly, it would be nice at some point, Senator, if you could acknowledge that this Labor government has doubled funding to UNRWA. As yet, I have never heard you say that.
Minister, the $20 million, the $20 million that you say that you have funded, if you need my approval to do that, or my appreciation for you for doing that, sure, great. But $20 million was the funding that the government gave UNRWA in 2014, so 10 years ago, and you brought it back just to that. So in real terms, the funding is still less than what it used to be 10 years ago. And
Who's she, viewers, who is this person representing? Who is she actually? She can't be representing Australia. She can't be. Who is she representing? Because this is not an Australian problem.
Basically, at this point in time, when people are starving, when there is this, genocide that Israel is committing against Palestinians, we need.
Viewers, there's people in Australia that are starving, believe it or not. Homeless, can't pay their electricity bills, pensioners without heating and all the rest of it. These people are fanatics. They're not Australian fanatics. They're fanatics that have come in covertly to ambush the Australian government and their finances, taxpayers' money, and demand, without any manners or any courtesies or any honour at all, that our money, the taxpayers' money, be sent overseas. Can you see what we're dealing with?
Need to give more funding, not suspend it, not bring it back to what it was 10 years ago.
Is there a question in there?
Well, I think there is.
But there was a question, but it's not being answered.
Well,
really.
I'm not sure what the question was in that, but I'm happy to respond. The first is...
The question was, sorry, if you'd like me to repeat the question. You said you didn't know what the question was. I can repeat the question, Minister.
No, I don't need to repeat the question. I thought there was a new question, or a preamble into a question, but I'm sure the Minister's fully aware of your original question.
I would like us to be, Australia to be in a position to have the confidence to provide additional funding, including through UNRWA, because I have no doubt that the humanitarian need is dire. And you have heard me, I think, in the Senate, in answer to questions from the Coalition, saying that 400,000 people starving, 1 million on the brink of starvation, and 1.7 million sheltering in UNRWA facilities. So, this is why we have increased the core funding. This is why I announced the additional funding of the flash appeal, and this is why we have provided, I think, in excess of $40 million additional to the region, including through to UNICEF and the International Committee of the Red Cross.
Do you guys, listening to this, don't you think this all should have been wrapped up? This all should have been just wrapped up, finished, done. That's the situation, and that's where we're at this point. But it's not.
So, Senator, I hope that you would see that we are trying to help. But you asked the question about irresponsibility. I don't think the person in this position can reasonably say to the Australian people, I've been confronted with or informed of allegations of participation in a heinous terrorist attack. Including by employees of an organisation, and simply continue to fund without gaining insurance. I don't think that is responsible. I wish that we were in a different position, and I hope that the international community can, through these processes, be given the confidence to continue to support UNRWA. That is my position. I know it is not the Coalition's position, well, some, but that is my position and the government's position.
All right, do you have one last question? Because I'm in need of a caffeine hit, and after that round,
Minister, sure.
Tea, okay?
Thanks, Chair.
Good.
Minister, I have carefully heard what you have said. From what I understand, you have no evidence of Israel's claims. You did not speak to the chief.
They got several countries evidence. She just said to this lady that the chairman, who we saw before, Mr. Philip Lazzarini, had sacked the infiltrators in the organisation. So she's not listening. She's undermining Penny Wong right in front of us. All the evidence was there.
Chief of UNRWA before you made the decision to suspend the funding. Surely there's a duty to actually verify the claims before taking such serious action, which actually puts hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people under further punishment and under further horrific circumstances. You have said... No, see, I don't know who she's fighting for. She's not fighting for Australian people. Right, she's demanding Australian money be sent to an organisation that itself had admitted has been infiltrated by the terrorists themselves, and they're sending the support to meet their needs and not the needs of the people. This is how out of sorts these people are. She just gave Penny Wong gave several examples that the reports are valid and authentic, and this woman just will not accept it. Why is she so determined to get this money? And the department staff have said UNRWA acted swiftly and in accordance with its obligations. They suspended staff, they terminated staff that were named by Israel. even without proof, because from what I've read, they were fearful that if they didn't do that, exactly what you have done would happen. It has happened nonetheless.
Yeah, it's happened because people care about taxpayers' money. We don't want our money going to terrorists.
Investigation is going on, but it could take months. And given
well, that's okay, because viewers, right now as I do this video, the NDIS pause as to the amendments is costing $1 million an hour. For every hour that it's paused on the 7th of the 7th, 2024, until the amendments go through, it's costing $1 million an hour. And we're arguing about this stuff.
It's an active war zone, Minister. What else would it take to reinstate UNRWA funding, and how long will it take, given that UNRWA has said that by the end of February, if funding is not restored, there would be a collapse, not just in Gaza, but in the West Bank, Jordan, Syria, and Lebanon, where forcibly displaced people are taking refuge.
Well, where are these people? Why is she putting the weight on the Australian people to fix this problem? Quite frankly, we don't have to get involved at all. And she's demanding like we owe Palestine something. We don't owe Palestine anything.
What would it take to restore that funding?
We're paying
and why
for this.
aren't you doing it right now?
Again, many questions. In terms of my duty first, I think, as a Minister of the Crown is where to make a judgment about whether I can continue to fund an organisation when such serious allegations have been not only raised but also countenanced and action taken by the organisation itself. I need to be able. I'm a supporter of development assistance. I have argued long and hard for additional aid in the budget. And the government has provided additional development assistance in our budgets. If I am going to continue to do that, including to seek to provide further funding to UNRWA and others in the region, then I have to be able to say to this committee, to the Parliament, to the Australian people that I have confidence in the organisations and their processes that we are funding. That is my duty. Now, like you, I am worried. I would make the point to you, we have already provided our core funding for this financial year. I know other partners are considering their core funding for this financial year. The $6 million from Australia is not the critical amount, and many other partners suspended their funding for the same reason. I've spoken again to Mr Lazzarini. I've spoken to Sigrid Karg, the coordinator, special coordinator. I've spoken to other partners. I think there is a lot of action being taken to try and resolve this matter as quickly as is possible.
All right.
So these people, these politicians, she's not fighting for Australia. She's fighting for Palestine, right? What Senate is she? Where is she a senator, in what place? She wouldn't answer the questions about whether Hamas should be shut down. And this is taxpayers' money. Guys, my question is, who are these Australian politicians covertly supporting terrorism? This is Dr. J.W. Morrison, theologist, out.